Welcome to Empirical Pea Pod. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. If you could, please subscribe, follow, share, like, comment, whatever the hell happens when we do these things. I'm your host, Tim Day. Let's get to the show. Plus, whenever I do and like all I hear is me breathing, I'm like, is the camera in my mouth?
In the camera? I can see myself breathe.
Yeah. All right. So
is this where the music's playing?
I can tell you've only listened to Katie's episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's done in post, as we say in the biz.
Ooh.
We're here with Dan Walsh down in the dungeon. This is where we play D&D.
Sure is.
Yeah. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're gonna talk to Walsh about D&D?" Nope.
Oh.
I figured you'd be sad about that. But
I could steer the conversation that way if we need to.
ooh, a power struggle. A tiny one can't take a hint.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Let's see. What I'd like to talk about, actually, it's another one of those weird ones because we've all grown up together. So like, kind of rehashing all these stories of bringing us to this point.
Sure.
It's actually enjoyable and fun, but it's also tedious because I lived through it.
Okay.
Especially like your story. Like I was there for most of it.
I know this story.
Yeah, right. Actually, when I recorded Kate Bamrick's episode, I kept forgetting that I was hosting a show because I never heard her story before, and I was so enthralled with what she was saying. I kept being like, "Oh yeah,"
Yep.
like, "Oh shit, I'm running the show."
Yep.
Lots of dead air in that one. Let's start with after you're actually one of the originals.
Original.
As far as the Oswego group goes, like you're one of the kindergarten kids.
I was.
There's only like 6 of you.
Oh, here we go. I'm on the record, and I'm going to leave somebody out. Watch this.
Yeah, they'll let you know.
No, it's T and Younk and Frola, Adam Coe, and see, there it is. Who is it? Who's not my friend anymore?
Wasn't Andy there?
Andy. Yep.
He's a big one to forget.
Yeah. I saw him today.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I haven't seen him since we were at JJ's.
Ah, yes.
I should hit him up. I'd love to have him on the show and hear his story as well. Someday. But, so you guys all came up together because you all lived in Boulder Hill.
Boulder Hill. That's right. The hood.
Yeah. Were you guys all centralized, like to where did you just go to school together, or was it close enough where like
yeah,
we went to each other's house?
Yeah, even at that time, back in the the 80s, there were 2 elementary schools in Boulder Hill. So
really?
To go to one school and one class, yeah, we were kind of on that side of town together for sure.
It's crazy.
Bike riding distance.
Boulder Hill is literally built on a hill, and it was built there, from my understanding, is for Caterpillar. Because Caterpillar was a big deal.
That makes sense.
And they built Boulder Hill for the employees that had to come and start running the plant.
Like a coal mine in town for the new generation.
Yeah, actually, like way back when, sure. Which is insane. Now it's its own thing, and Caterpillar's long gone and fucked off. But yeah, so you say you guys could ride bikes to each other's houses?
Oh yeah, we were little gangs terrorizing the neighborhood for sure.
That's still happening in Boulder Hill, I hear.
Yep. Climbing trees, sneaking out at night.
Yeah. Probably not much sneaking out at night in elementary school.
Yeah.
How long did you stay in Boulder Hill?
Until I was 15.
Did you then come straight to here?
So to here, yeah. Yeah, so I did my freshman year of high school from Boulder Hill, and then here.
No, so you just barely made it, because you went to Thompson then. Mm-hmm. So you just barely, because you would have gone to Trauber for sure if you moved earlier.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because I'm always curious, because like Annie and I went to Trauber.
That's weird.
Because Annie lived in
She
Boulder
can
Hill.
see Thompson from her house.
Like literally.
Yeah.
I like to think that they kicked her out or asked her not to come.
Yep.
Like she's got a mouth on her. Send her to Trauber.
Maybe she'll tell that story on the podcast.
She's been on it, and she didn't. Because I didn't realize until after we recorded. But there's rumors of her and I doing our own show later.
Oh.
So it's going to come up. I've got it written as a note somewhere so that I remember next time.
Fuck yeah.
So let's go ahead and fast forward. We all, after high school, where did you go to college?
North Central College. Stayed local.
Smart.
So that's in Naperville.
Yeah. What was your major?
It's communications, speech communications. So it's a phony major. I learned nothing.
Let's say just before we got on, we were talking about how you can't do words well anymore. And then we found out that you're actually 5 minutes in the future. That's why.
Yep. I am pissing my degree away, I'm afraid. But
do you know anybody that's using their degree though? Really?
Well, no, but those people are successful and have moved on.
Yes, right.
No, and I joke, but honestly, I do feel like it was useful. Like, because I'm not a naturally, I don't know, I don't want to be the center of attention ever.
Yeah.
But if you get me on stage or in front of a crowd, I feel at home, which is super weird. Being in the band for all those years, loved it. Never had a second of stage fright in my entire life. But when I get off stage, and people come up to me to say, "Hey, nice show," I'm like, "Don't fucking talk to me."
Yeah, I feel that same way actually because like, in the band I was like we were bass players, so we were never the center of attention anyways, except that we played a very unique style that could be flashy, but usually it was our lead singer. Plus we had handsome boys as our lead singers. But it's the same thing, like for sure, where it's like. I didn't feel centralized there. Like even in normal life, like I can be loud and obnoxious on my own terms. But when people are like giving me praise or thinking that I'm giving me that center of attention thing, I'm like, it's weird.
Yep. No, I want to pop in with a clever line, get a laugh, and get out.
Yeah, that sounds like a Walsh thing. As you know, Walsh is a verb.
It is
for many reasons. We'll get into it. Because I remember too when you were going to college, did you? We did a lot of stuff at the radio station. I remember.
Yeah, that's where I went.
I'll say, did you at 89.1?
Mm-hmm. The Wonk.
Yeah. Did you ever DJ there, or did you?
I never
work
DJed.
around there?
I did weather.
Did you?
Yeah.
Weather and traffic's on the nines.
Yeah, and we had the computer and with the. Hook up to the, what was it, like the Associated Press or whatever, the feeds that would come through. And it was like, you go in a half hour early, you flip through and you grab 3 news stories you think are interesting, you write them up and you go on air for 30 seconds.
That's
college credit, baby.
Yeah, that's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Can you see yourself doing that, like, bigger than that? Or was it like...
I think I could now. I definitely couldn't then.
Yeah.
Because I think now, it's funny how, like, recursive and, like, living in the future and trying to act in the past is difficult. Some would say impossible, but I disagree. Anyway.
It's all relative.
After having gone through 4 years of schooling and studying speech communication and doing, debates and presentations and stuff and getting over that fear and realizing that I actually liked it, I think if I had that experience when I started as a freshman, I would have been Mr. DJ. I would have loved it. I would have hammed it up for sure.
Yeah.
But it took those 4 years of like study and just doing it really to be like, oh yeah, I can open my mouth with eyes on me. Like even now at work, I do that. I do presentations and lead group meetings and stuff like that. You have to run
pretty big things, and you're the point guy.
Yeah, and it's no problem. I sit there and I crack jokes and I smile and I finger guns at the camera and then as soon as I shut the meeting down, I'm like, oh God, they all hate me.
Yeah, we all do that every time we hang out with you too. But that's awesome because I remember back then I didn't drink. I don't drink now. There was that little small window, but back then I really didn't drink at all. And I remember being in the booth. There was some girl that worked there that we would always go hang out with. I can't remember her name. But
was it Kara?
Oh, probably.
I saw her the other night.
Really?
Yeah, at the Take the Range show.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. I swear I've bumped into her like every 5 years regularly since college.
She was cool. She was really cool.
Super cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys stay in touch beyond that, or was it just like I just ran into you?
Yep. When we left, I said, "I'll see you in 5 years."
I remember her last night. We were in there. I think you were probably already out of school by then.
Probably.
Because her last night we were there. I think we brought a 24-pack, and there's a few of us there. Because I remember Andy actually, I think, ended up passed out in somebody's yard behind the station. Yeah,
there was as I recall it, there was a shed, and behind the shed... So there's a little tiny radio station, behind which is an even smaller shed, behind which is a rowboat. And found him under the rowboat.
Under the rowboat is my favorite part. Yeah, because I remember Jason kept hitting the live mic button and just yelling swear words while the music's going. Like, not even during commercial.
Yeah.
She didn't give a shit. It was her last day.
Yeah. No. Somebody got fined, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. It was also like, I think she ran 12 to 2.
Yeah, so it was the all ages show.
That's right,
She's
yeah.
a punk rock kid like us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was from, I think, honestly, it might have run from 12 to 4.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Probably
We just went to bed at 2.
bed.
But yeah, the all ages punk rock radio is, 2001 to 2005 was awesome. Bands in and out all the time. And
Yeah.
even our band got to go in and play live, and it was a ton of fun.
That's awesome. Really? You guys played live there?
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. It was so small, I couldn't imagine setting up the whole band there.
There was a classroom, actually, so they just ran the cables down the
really?
hall and into the classroom. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, because we were on a radio station once way out in the wind farm.
Mm-hmm.
But we could only bring an acoustic guitar. And I'm sure nobody in the world heard it.
I think everybody on the east side of campus heard that night. We were cranked up.
Yeah, well, you guys and your punk rocks. What'd you do after college then?
Well, I started looking for work, which took a while, and you got to do something to pass the time. And so I had worked at a paint store at Sherwin-Williams in college, just as part-time, and ended up getting a full-time job with them just until I found something else, and ended up driving a truck. And I was way closer than you'd believe to going out for a CDL and being an on-the-road trucker.
Really?
Yeah. At that time in my life, I was thinking, wow, 12 hours goes by like that if I'm just sitting here listening to music, trying not to run people over.
Yeah.
What a job.
Yeah.
But that ended on a run back from St. Louis where the truck overheated, and I had to pull off in the middle of nowhere and wait for it to cool down, and it was like 100 degrees out in the summer, and so I had to run the heat to keep the engine cool, and had my shirt off and the door down, and every 20 or 30 miles it would start to shake again, and I called the boss. He's like, you got to just pull over and wait, man. And I made it all the way back to Plainfield, and it just died.
Blew up.
Yep. And then when the police came, because big fucking truck in the road, he was like, can I see your license? Of course, officer, here you go. He goes, no, your other license. What do you mean?
Oh.
And he goes, son, do you see that number on the side of your truck?
I'll say it's chemicals.
Yeah. Do you see how that number on the side of the truck is bigger than the number that's on your driver's license? That means you need another license.
Oh boy.
At 19, I was like, my boss, he said it was fine. I didn't know we have a smaller truck. I don't. But
that's bogus.
yeah, so nothing happened. I didn't get a ticket.
Yeah, but you feel like a little set up.
Yeah, I feel like somebody knew, and they were like, well, we could pay the money to get this done properly, or we could, or fuck it.
Or let's send Walsh.
Yeah. But yeah, so then that was shortly after I quit. Ended up finding an office job, and I've been in offices ever since. Only 2, actually. It was not bad for that,
So you did
that stretch of
insurance
years.
for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nightmare.
You didn't like insurance?
Well, so no, I did not. I don't care for it at all. It's I might say it radicalized me. Yeah. I was just a homespun, country-loving American boy, and then, up until then.
Here comes insurance.
Yeah. No, it was. It honestly was rough. I started as in the phone bank, just taking calls, people calling and bitching, be like, I was 3 days late and you canceled my insurance and now I'm in debt and I'm gonna die. I'm like, oh, right. I bet the folks at T-Mobile probably don't have that kind of call.
Sure.
But I did well at it, well enough that I was able to get off of the phones and I became a trainer, which was cool, using the degree again, because I had to get in front of a class of 10 or 12 new hires and set up a 6-week training course and be like,
did you get to write the curriculum then?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't get to decide what their job duties were.
Well, sure.
How
they
to
had
teach
a skeleton though, and you had to flesh it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
That makes sense. That's really cool. But you hated that still eventually. Yeah,
it was good for a while, and then learned a little bit more about how big corporations work and about how it's not really about getting the job done. It's about the people above you thinking you got the job done. So there was all these middle managers just throwing out impossible tasks, and
which is their job. Because anytime you're doing well, they have to up what you're doing, and futz with it until it's just barely unattainable.
Yep.
They keep you chasing the cheese.
Yep. But yeah, I ended up. That was the only time I ever quit a job without another prospect lined up.
Really?
Yeah, I still gave 2 weeks. I finished up a project that I was working on, and I was like, that's it. 'Cause the final straw was a moment where they were like, all right, you're going to need to train this this new software. And I was like, it doesn't exist? Like, it's not built? Like, the programmers have like a half-working copy of it, and you want me to train the people? And they were like, oh yeah, they're going to start using it next week. And then...
It's not done.
Yeah, I was like, it's not done. Like, it'll be close enough. And yeah, it was a disaster, and so I got through it, and I said, thanks, that was fun, and I'm gone.
I wonder how many businesses go away on the principle of...
Yeah, but you know what happened is, even though it was a fucking shit show and customer service got backed up and it was a nightmare for everyone involved, whoever set that target date, we're going to release on this day, hit their target and probably got a promotion.
Yeah, or at least a raise bonus, for sure. So after insurance, did you land in your present job?
Yeah.
Or was there something in between?
Nope. Skyrim was in between.
You did platinum Skyrim.
I did.
Which I've always been impressed by because it's painfully boring.
Thieves Guild is remorseless.
Because now you actually have a pretty interesting job.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's interesting because like these big trade shows that come around, you, if I understand correctly, basically you set up the internet for these big trade shows for people that are displaying there.
So it's more like...
It's not the people, the actual, whoever's putting it on.
Yeah. So the people that are putting it on, they got this giant exhibit space that they need to carve up into individual exhibits to sell to whoever's going to show up with their wares.
So like C2E2, for instance.
Yeah, totally.
I don't not necessarily that one, but that's the idea. It's the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. So all those booths on the floor plan, those companies are like, okay, I need 300 square feet, and I need it on the corner of an aisle, and
I think I'm fascinated about it because when I was doing project management, I helped look into the cost of stuff like that for a particular client, and they just to get the internet in the little booth was like $400 a day.
Oh yeah, so
it's insane.
Well, what's going on now, and we've actually done this because it's so meta. But not only are we a trade show management software company, we go and exhibit at trade shows to sell our trade show management software. And yeah, so when you go down there, it will cost you X amount of dollars to ship, say like a big TV, like 65-inch TV. You want to do a demonstration on. It costs a shitload of money to ship it. It costs way more than that to rent it. Yeah, so for less than either of those, you can go to Best Buy and purchase the TV and just fucking leave it there. So every time they have one of these shows, people are going and buying equipment and ditching it because it costs them less than renting it.
Which is insane. Yeah, because it's not really screwing Best Buy as far as buy and return. It's screwing them on service plans, but I don't know where those prices come from. Plus, there's actually very specific rules. I don't know if you've run into that. Where it's like if you bring stuff, because they're union workers, they have to touch everything. They have to bring it in. They can't let you touch stuff because it's a unionized position.
And it depends on the city. It's loosened up, but there is definitely a story of a show in Chicago where all we had to bring was a couple of computers, network them together, and kind of run it from a station. Yeah. Got there, we ran our own network cables, plugged in our own mice. All that was good. Some dude standing there with crossed arms watching, and as soon as they tried to plug the power cables for the laptops into the wall, they got stopped. And they're like, you don't do that. We got a guy for that. And so they had to wait and call an electrician to come in and plug their computers in.
Yeah, what do you think about stuff like that?
I think it's maybe a silly misapplication of what's a solid and necessary premise. Like, I'm all for organizational labor.
Too literally.
Sure.
Like when they're literally combing the desert in Spaceballs.
Yeah.
It's like, are we being too literal?
Yeah.
I think so. No, you fool.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, but I don't think you can judge something on, its nonsense outlier stories, right? Otherwise, everything
There's
would be
definitely
terrible.
a happenstance that created that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there's a lot of policies that we just roll over on because they're policies.
Because you don't want to deal with the headache.
Yeah, exactly. There should be something somewhere that's constantly questioning and updating policies. You would hope, but what? Did you take a speed reading course?
No.
I feel like you did something about speed reading.
No, never. I read a lot, but my minor in college was English, so I read a ton.
What did you read in college?
Gosh, all kinds of stuff. You try to get a you got to
They
take
have like a curriculum that you have to read this.
Well, it's more like within the curriculum, you got to hit so many like lower level, and then a certain number you choose from the higher levels. So, like for example, my senior year, my 400 level English course, I had several choices, and the one I took was called "The Ethics of Suffering," which is deep dive into some hard literature and
who wrote that?
Themes. Well, so that was the name of the course. We read stuff like Marquis de Sade.
Did you read ethics?
I read a book called Ethics for the New Millennium by the Dalai Lama. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I
can't pronounce Buddy's name, so I don't want to sound like a jagoff. But there's a book called Ethics.
Oh, Aristotle?
No, Immanuel.
No, that's poetics.
Immanuel Kant.
Oh, Kant? Yeah, that's more like philosophy. But
okay, 'cause I own that because I like to pretend I'm important.
Sure. No, it's good stuff. I like to stretch the old brain. But and then I did my final, do this right and you'll get your minor on A Clockwork Orange. So it was tons of fun.
Really? Yeah. That's really cool. That's a good book too. Mm-hmm. Very, just different enough from the movie. You read a lot, like an uncomfortable amount. Some would say a heroic amount.
I would say it's a middling amount.
Like you've read all the Song of Ice and Fire books.
Well, the ones that have been written, George.
Well, there's no way for you to not. Actually, probably not. Well, I guess the main story you've read. Mm-hmm. You haven't read the extra stuff.
Oh, I did read Dunk and Egg, but not. What's the new show on HBO? Fire and Blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't read that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because there's 2 of those.
Yeah. Although I think is only one published. Maybe I forget.
Who could tell?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only that's. I only mention that because that's something we all know. It's part of the zeitgeist now.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's really nothing. Like tip of the iceberg versus your love of fantasy literature.
I would say that's true. Yeah. I mean, it's high up there. It's really quality work.
Yeah, I don't mean like quality. I just mean like most recognizable.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about. Let's like chip away at that iceberg.
Okay.
So, what is your favorite fantasy series?
Oh, ask me to pick a favorite child. Why don't you?
Yeah, well, you only
Which
have
I can
one.
do. I only have one.
That's easy.
Yep.
That's probably easier.
Yep.
The harder part would be like, do you like fantasy or your child more?
Ooh. We could do a whole episode on that. Love you, Veda. Obviously, I choose you. There's always sci-fi.
Yeah, that's true. Good call. Because and do you feel that they kind of they're very different, but they almost have a familiar structure when you jump into something? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like jumping from a Song of Ice and Fire to any of the other books is like, all right, I have a general understanding of the genre, and the genre shares certain things. It
does, yeah, for sure, but you get, should we use the word shape? Differently shaped stories.
Sure.
Like, Song of Ice and Fire is a thing in which you follow multiple characters and a huge land with competing interests and changing politicscape. And that is a common trope in fantasy. But it's not indicative of fantasy, right?
Right, but it's also, I think, highly political.
Yeah.
Like, more political, I think, than people would realize. Because it's so, you don't really realize it, but it's such a political show. Versus something like Wheel of Time, which is, did you watch the trailer for season 2?
Yeah.
By the time this comes out, season 2 will have dropped.
No way.
Hopefully we won't be disappointed.
Since I live in the future, Tim, it's pretty good.
Nice. That's exciting. But like, what do you think is the difference then? Because I don't know anything about Wheel of Time outside of what I've watched on the show, and a little bit like for Song of Ice and Fire, I watched hundreds of hours of videos.
Yeah.
Because I refuse to read because I'm a baby, and I've done very small on a much smaller scale with Wheel of Time. And
you know what would be a really fun exercise? This is a sidebar. I'm sorry if I derail the entire episode. But I would love to have you measure how fast you read, like words per minute.
Yeah.
And then try to get an estimate of how many hours of YouTube you've watched on the lore and history of A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
And see how far into the series you would be if you spent your time.
So I know that the first book is only 40 hours audiobook, which means I've listened to it, the equivalent of it, twice. So I gotta think that's the first 2 books done. If I wasn't an asshole about it, I should just break down. After watching the lady on Bookborn do it, I do trust her opinion. It made me way more interested in the book. I'm just intimidated by the sheer size, and also because I don't read anything really outside of comics. My brain doesn't comprehend point of view storytelling because I haven't done it in so long.
Do you mean, when you say point of view, do you mean like seeing from different characters' perspectives, or do you mean
like I presume in the book it's each chapter, like there's definite breaks. It's not changing perspectives.
Yeah, Song of Ice and Fire, literally the chapter titles are the character names. So it'll be like, Sansa, and then a chapter, and then the next one will be called Tyrion, and it's all from his perspective. And it's really cool because the writing style shifts in these subtle ways to reflect like what's going on in their head.
Yeah, see, I think I would like that action. Like, just that sounds so much more appealing than the show. Even though I much prefer movies and TV, but that sounds just so much more in depth and easier to track per character as opposed to an overview like you're getting on a TV show. Because you're not, especially that show, you're not following a character, you're overviewing hundreds.
True, but in the language of film, if I can get pretentious as possible.
Oh, please.
Certain like scenes and narratives are from a character's perspective, just in subtle ways, right? It's not like you're first person. It's not hardcore Henry,
right?
Which made me sick, by the way.
Yeah, I'm glad they at least attempted.
I'm really glad that people are making.
It's a cool idea, but
yeah, it's like a merry-go-round. Like, I'm glad they exist, but I'm not gonna get on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, we're kind of going back into those deep because they're heavy. Like, there's I hesitate to use the word system, and you know what I mean by system. Like,
I don't.
You do in the sense of like there's magic in Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
There's magic in Wheel of Time.
Like the magic systems.
Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, because there's a political.
That's one of my favorite parts is learning new magic systems.
There's a political system.
Yeah.
There's going to be some sort of hierarchy. There's going to be a magic system. Those are all kind of tropes of fantasy.
Definitely.
And they are all different.
Those might be broad enough to not even call tropes.
That's probably true. Yeah.
Like having a magic system, how fucking tropey is that?
My only comparison, honestly, is video games, Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Because there's been 16 of those now, and they are not they're not a story. They're 16 individual things.
Sure.
So they all share. That's my closest allegory to the fantasy genre, where they share elements, and that's it. Now, Starlight Archive is also another big one. Stormlight. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah. I don't read because I'm not a nerd. Unless it's comic books. Which we're going to talk about in a minute also.
All right, fair enough.
But the Stormlight Archive, would you say those are your top 3?
No, actually. I don't know that... Ooh, this is tough. It's children again. I don't know... if I would put Song of Ice and Fire or Wheel of Time in my top 3, maybe not.
That's fascinating to me.
Stormlight is at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's like Stormlight is part of a whole like shared universe of multiple series that take place in a shared universe. And
what do you mean by that?
So Stormlight Archive takes place on a single planet with its own magic system and politics and gods and whatnot.
Sure.
There are other planets in this universe that
by
have
other authors?
No, him.
Oh,
Yeah.
who writes Stormlight?
Who writes other series.
But who writes it?
Yep. Same guy. Oh, Brandon Sanderson.
Brandon Sanderson.
Oh,
Right.
not
Yeah,
whom.
he's got too much.
Whom writes it?
Yeah, whom. He's got too much in his brain.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so he writes. So there's multiple stories coming out of this one universe.
There are. And my opinion is that while most of his work is pretty good, it's fine. I like it. Good enough. Something about Stormlight is just popping and hit me, gut punched me, and I reread it several times, and it hits just as hard each time. Yeah.
So are they offshoots though? Like, there's the main Stormlight Archive series, and then a bunch of.
There's another series
in.
called Mistborn. There's
Oh, okay.
6 of those now, and it's a different world, different characters. Slowly, as this dude puts out books and series, they're starting to slowly mingle, and via magic systems and discovering old, secrets and whatnot, they're figuring out ways to travel between series, basically.
Yeah.
And so you'll
Does
see.
it take place at different times, or is it all still?
Yeah.
I mean, fantasy is kind of outside of time in some places.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the future, sometimes it's the past.
Right.
Time is relative to whatever.
Yeah. So no, they're of varying times, and there would be someday, I assume, a coherent timeline, which is something to look forward to. But right now, it's more like you see, this person doing this magic on that planet, and you're like, they're not supposed to do that here. They only do that there.
Yeah.
How do you get there?
That's awesome. I find it fascinating, that particular idea in that scope of a story, just because that's very comic booky, where you have a dozen or upwards of, like when DC relaunched years ago, they did the New 52, and that was just 52 main titles all in one shared universe, and I feel like that's why people piss themselves with the MCU, is because you've never seen anything like that on a big budget movie scale.
Yeah.
And it's incredible when it's done right, but it's existed forever in storytelling.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's really cool to kind of see. I would love to see them shift away. Like, obviously I love comic books, but I would love to see them shift away. And I don't know how you would do a Stormlight Archive justice in that kind of a scale.
Yeah.
I think you'd have to do it like the MCU, where you have your main story might be movies, and then your offshoot books are series, and they cross over, which would be amazing.
Yeah, I think these days, though, the model is proven, and if you want to faithfully adapt, say, a regular-sized novel, or let's say a regularly sized fantasy novel, because they tend to be big.
Yeah.
You need a season of high budget television.
It does seem like at least 10 hours.
Yeah, exactly. A 10-hour movie versus a 2 or 3 hour movie is going to give you freedom to do what you couldn't otherwise. Yeah, for sure.
Now, you put Lord of the Rings in your top like that?
I do.
Top 3?
Yep.
So Stormlight Archive, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. And then I don't know. I might juggle a few.
Yeah.
There.
Just keep a rotating third.
Yeah. There's one series that's so high quality, but it's only 2 out of a trilogy are done, and it's another one of those authors where it's like, this motherfucker, he's never gonna finish this.
Really?
We're gonna be stuck with 2/3 of a trilogy forever.
Yeah.
So.
Well, hold on. Isn't Stormlight Archive, is that the one that somebody else started?
No.
Okay,
but there is a connection there, because
Okay.
the Wheel of Time is
Wheel of Time the one?
It is. There's
Because there was an author that wrote it.
There's 15 Wheel of Time books,
Yes.
and the original author wrote 12 of them.
And then passed away.
Passed away.
But
and,
his protege.
Yeah. Well, he never met the guy until after he was dead.
Oh, really?
It's a cool story. Like, the original author, Robert Jordan, married his editor, which is, I love that. That's adorable.
Yeah, that's how you get books published.
Yeah, for sure. And so after Robert Jordan passed, Brandon Sanderson, author of the Stormlight Archive, had read and loved The Wheel of Time, of course, and wrote a blog post that was basically this beautiful eulogy and goodbye to one of my favorite authors and whatnot. Fast forward to the widow and editor decides, okay, we need to find the next person to
So it was already
do this.
planned to have somebody continue the
They
story.
were going to search for sure,
Yeah.
and if they found the right person, yes.
Right,
And
'cause
she comes across this blog post. Somebody brings it to her attention, like, look at what this guy wrote
Yeah,
about
look who's
your
got
husband.
this background too.
And then she was like, okay, oh, and he's an author.
Yeah.
Oh, give me one of his books. She read one of his books, and then, can you imagine just sitting at home and you get the call and it's like, hi, I'm the creator of your most beloved thing, and I wonder if you'd like to finish it.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. So, but he did, and he knocked it out of the park.
So Wheel of Time is finite.
It is. It's done. It's done.
Okay. It is a fascinating, like, there's so much stuff that, like, just from what I've watched, has just barely touched upon. As far as having, it's got to me, it's got a really cool magic system as far as different kinds of witches.
One of my favorites. Yeah, actually, if you go to Magic Systems,
yeah,
Wheel of Time might be number 2.
Really, really interesting. But what I find fascinating too is that we were just talking about how time is like not really a thing in these sort of books, because in Wheel of Time you see a lot of like medieval. It has like almost a Dark Ages feel because you deal with swords and sorcery and magic. But if you pay attention, there's all these allusions or downright showings of ultra modern technology.
Absolutely.
Built into it, and it's like, I don't know enough to know what that means is the big story, but it's enough to be like, that's really cool.
There's a line that gets used in every single Wheel of Time book, in like usually in a floofy kind of an intro to like scene setting sort of a way, and I still get chills when I hear it, and it's oh god, I'm gonna butcher it now that I'm on the mic.
Paraphrasing.
Yeah, for sure. But it's like it describes something, say like a wind over the mountain, and it describes it in beautiful prose. And then it always ends with, the wind was not the beginning. There are no beginnings to the Wheel of Time, but it was a beginning.
Ooh, yeah, that is awesome. That makes me want to know more about that too. It also helps that watching it, what's her name is so good as that main character. I can't remember her name either.
Rosamund Pike.
Yeah, Rosamund Pike is phenomenal.
Yep, great casting. Another example of the nerds who got up in arms because she doesn't completely match the physical description given in the books.
Sure. Well, like,
she's too tall.
Yeah, she
Shut
is tall, but
she's great.
It's tough because I've been on both sides of those. As a comic book nerd, like, comic books toxic, like the toxic environment around comics.
Are they?
Oh, because the thing about comics is you can change any character's race, you can change their gender. Like, comic books are supposed to mirror the community, and a lot of them are just a collection of ideals that are universal, right? Now, if I take a Superman story though and say, all right, well, here's 85 years of Superman's history, he's been this guy, and then put him on the TV and change all the stuff about him, people are gonna get uncomfortable because now they identify as Superman. But when you pull that back a little farther, in 85 years, he's had at least 80 different writers, 80 different artists, and 80 different variations of who this person is and what it means to that time it was written. So that's the main reason I always get annoyed when comic book people complain about whatever portrayal is happening at that point in our time. Because what do you mean it's not your Superman? Are you talking about the 1938? Were you there? Or the 72?
Right.
Or the Christopher Reeves? Or the one from 96? Like, what do you mean?
Yep.
It doesn't, you don't have an ownership over this? Yep. And we should constantly be pushing the boundaries. At the same time, I do think that it's important for representation's sake to create new characters and push them, not push them down your throat in a, hey, look at us kind of way, but this is clearly part of society. It's weird that you're making it weird.
Yeah, I love that. It's weird that you're making it weird.
Yeah, because I know that they're planning on doing a story about a black Superman, which is brilliant. It's insane that it's taken this long to even talk about it. But that's not a problem. It's not Clark Kent. It's not, the son of Jor-El. There's
interesting.
other people from this thing There's no way that a planet, like, even if this planet blows up, there's a bunch of people not on the planet.
Yeah.
In various space stations or whatever. That's a very traumatic thing. But if this country blew up, there's a bunch of humans still.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of Americans abroad.
No doubt.
So to think that this 2 people survived from Krypton, and that's it, is insane. Like, and I think it's anytime one of them would show up to Earth, they would realize things are different because they're not these super beings anywhere else. That's only here because of the proximity of our sun to Earth.
Obviously.
Yeah, that's the only reason they have superpowers. Otherwise, they're just normal people. So I don't understand when it's like when there has gay characters or minority characters. Everybody wants to get up in arms. They do the same thing in Star Wars. Like, oh my God, oh, there's a girl. There's a girl. It's not Star Wars. Like, no, it is. This is what it is, and it's constantly gonna evolve. It's gonna get even more evolved later. If you're uncomfortable, please leave.
Yeah.
Do you see stuff like that in? You probably, I don't know how involved you are in the community of fantasy.
I'm what I believe an internet community would call a lurker. I read, I don't post.
That's probably what I would say about myself too. Do you see stuff like that? Especially like with the casting stuff where it's like, they casted, that guy's kind of got dark skin. He shouldn't really have dark skin.
No, I'm very pleased to say that, at least from what I've seen, the fantasy community is really, really positive about that kind of stuff.
I'm hoping it stays that way because realistically it's in its infancy compared to comic books.
Right. That
have had almost 100-year history at this point.
Yeah. Like, the Lord of the Rings fandom might be an exception to that because that kind of transcends genre a little bit. Yeah. Especially after the Peter Jackson movies.
Yeah, right? But do you also feel that's a good segue into this next part as far as talking about some of this writing is dated and is problematic. Yeah. So do you think that might be a reason too why something like Lord of the Rings might have a little more toxicity? It's a little more problematic in certain spots.
Tell me more.
That's more of a question because I haven't read any of it. It's more of, it didn't sound like a question, but there was a question mark at the end.
Yeah. No, I've never found it to be, oh, do I want to go down this rabbit hole? How many people can we alienate in 1 hour? Frankly, the most offensive thing about Lord of the Rings is the religion. That's Dan Walsh's point.
Sure. And that's your experience. Yeah. Like, obviously, anybody who reads is going to have a different experience. We're 2 middle-aged white men. Like, who the fuck are we? No. But based on our experience, that would be the most frustrating part.
But there is a sincere lack of racial diversity and impactful female characters. Yeah. I will say that the Silmarillion, which is woefully adapted in the new show, has a whole lot more impactful female characters.
Yes. Now this idea, when was Lord of the Rings originally written?
50s.
So the world's very different, right? And as we grow, we can't really use it as an excuse. To me, I've always loved the idea of taking something for what it is, and it's a very worst, like, acknowledging what it is and being like, hey, we don't want to change what this is because it is art, and it would be like lying or pretending it didn't happen if we altered this, and then putting it back out into the world because it is missing these things that we've grown to kind of accept and experience. Do you think the new show, because that's a toxic piece that the internet lost its fucking mind about, is seeing strong female characters in an adaptation of something, and seeing more diversity as well, because the core books didn't. So if we take that and say, all right, this was a different thing written 70 years ago, and we're doing not necessarily a modern telling, but we're telling it clearly in a modern time as far as storytelling goes. Why would you expect it to look like something from the 50s? Or do you think it should look like something from the 50s?
I think, to play devil's advocate, the folks who get pissy about that would say it doesn't have to represent the 50s, it has to represent the source material, right? An adaptation should be a love letter to the source material and not a a betrayal of it. I don't feel like the new stuff is a betrayal of the source material necessarily.
Well,
I think they made a lot of poor storytelling choices.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that because I hadn't read it, it was easy to digest the show.
Mm-hmm.
Going back and doing my YouTube dives, I was like, huh, why did they make all these decisions?
Yeah.
But I also know that they only had access to a quarter of a story and wanted to tell 100% of a story.
Yeah. I would love, and I never have, to research like what exactly they had the rights to and the way that they were able to. I have to assume.
Yeah.
Belly right up to that line.
It's crazy because that came up in the deep dive I did on YouTube about Rings of Power, particularly, like where they're pulling stuff like literally a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
A sentence that has chapters of a book somewhere else, and they only have access to use a sentence, and they're just filling in whatever they want.
Yeah.
That's just, it's almost like it's doomed from the start. But at the same time, if you compare it to something like Star Wars, which is another toxic fandom.
A little bit.
Yeah. But what did you think of the newest 3 Star Wars films?
Very much the same. I didn't have any problem with any of the casting choices. I actually found some of it quite charming.
Right.
But like storytelling, like,
Sure.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that big budget, piss poorly written material like that was shortly followed by a writer's strike. Right. Like I think we're reaching a point in the industry where writers really aren't given the respect that they are due, and I think that's being learned because I think people are, for a while, have been operating under according to my calculations, what people like is big budget spectacle,
right,
and this and that and the other, and way down at the bottom of that is like coherent storytelling.
Yeah.
And we're finding that what people love about the things that last, that stay with us, is actually the writing, the impactful storytelling, and that when you make a big budget spectacle without it, it becomes transient and it doesn't stick with you, right? It's just like, oh, that was schlocky. It was fine. I'm not angry about it, but I'm not going to watch it again.
Right. It just is. Mm-hmm. I always notice that in the cinema, because I only go and see certain things at the actual cinema. Mm-hmm. And when I do that, I can tell how I feel, like, because when it ends, I have this, like, not feeling of dread, but, like, it's almost like an emptiness where it's like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. It just was. You wanna know something that's even worse than that feeling? Is when you drag somebody to a movie like that and you're like, this is gonna be great. Yeah. And then it ends and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, man. Did that happen? I mean, I kind of talked up the Wheel of Time TV show and it turned out to be like okay. I still liked it. And I did a lot of this series defined and directly led to the modern fantasy resurgence, and we're gonna see it on TV, y'all. And, I do remember that because we watched it together. I was so fucking jazzed. Yeah, and it's fine. It's pretty good. It's okay. Yeah, it is. It's easy to forgive certain aspects because there's some behind the scenes problems. That's true too. That affect the show wildly. Mm-hmm. That hurt the show wildly, but aren't anybody's fault really. Yep. But I think it's good enough. There's a good enough bones there that I'm stoked for season 2. Mm-hmm. Like, genuinely. And no, same. Plus, I love, like, I can't say, without even knowing enough about it, like you were saying, it's one of your favorite magic systems. The setup of the different kind of witches, I love a nice color coding. It makes my OCD feel good. And just the way of that is coming around. Also, only women have magic. Like, it's just so compelling and interesting that I'm hoping that they can right the ship in season 2, which I think they can. It's set up for success for sure. Yeah, and I would love to see it continue forward. But yeah, so going back to what we were talking about too, with like potentially problematic ideas. Oh yeah, speaking of this, this
series that defined the modern fantasy genre, and I ran around touting like, y'all watch this on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's got some problematic shit in it, man.
Right.
There's some men be like this and women be like this, very much in there, and like the I think the intent was to maybe say that like that black and white thinking is wrong.
Sure.
But he didn't quite get there.
Well, I'm sure if we looked at progression, if we had a scale, here's little steps, right?
Yeah.
Like we're going in the right direction, but life moves faster than print.
Yeah.
Because it feels progressive as far as only women have magic, and if anybody can practice magic in this world, but if the men practice magic, they go insane.
Yep.
And become like the power goes to their head, basically.
Yep.
Like, what a metaphor, anyways. So in that way, it feels progressive.
Yep.
But like anything, yeah, there's still going to be, whatever comes up. But what I'm curious is, in this day and age too, because of, we want to change things and that already exist, and then repurpose them for ourselves now, and then re-release them. Something like we talked about this before weeks ago, like Roald Dahl, and they are taking Roald Dahl stories because they own the rights to them, and taking out all the problematic things that 100% exist and are genuinely problems, and blatant, like, horrible, and omitting them from the books, and then re-releasing the books with all that not in it. What do you think of something like that?
Ooh, re-releasing the original, I'm not a huge, like an edited copy of the original, unless you're
marking it as such.
Yeah, I'm not so much for that.
It's one thing if you're like, this is James the Giant Peach for your kindergarten class.
Yes, exactly.
As opposed to being like, all right, you're in high school, this is what James the Giant Peach is really like.
Yep.
Yeah, like that to me makes sense. But if you're going to try to put it out, a Roald Dahl book, as what you are turning it into, that I think is wrong. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, mostly. I think there is a certain something to be said for that if you give kids the watered down version, they don't grow out of it.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do this, but I'm gonna harp on religion again. I've actually spoken to clergy I practiced in my youth, who have said things like the sermons you get at church it's different than if you spend your life studying the text and the meaning and the history of what the religion is really all about.
Right.
But people get that watered down version early, and they're like, this is simple, this is comfortable, this is what I was taught, and fuck you for changing it.
Right.
And I wouldn't like to see a child who
you just described every reason for every toxic fandom.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, in the same kind of vein, maybe it would be more healthy to not shelter the children. Maybe it's better to just say, hey, here's this book that isn't to be read until a certain age, so that we can talk about the themes
like
in a more adult fashion.
You wouldn't show Catcher in the Rye to a junior high school kid,
right,
or to an elementary school kid.
Right, and for that same reason, I probably wouldn't do like Catcher in the Rye Goes Shopping
right.
as a picture book.
Yeah. But that's what I just don't understand the motivation behind it. I don't like our society thinks we can take history and just erase the ugly parts. That's not history. That's fascism, and that's creating whatever narrative you want. And it's insane to me, especially now. I think it's more relevant now, honestly, because of this whole thing that's happening right now with AI.
Oh, there's a whole new topic.
Right, but I think they're related, because here's us taking something that already is art and exists and is what it is, which is all art's supposed to be. And instead of being able to teach somebody and talk to them and be like, hey, here's why this is a problem. We've grown as a people and as a culture, which should always be happening.
Mm-hmm.
And understand, to me, the amazing part is that we can look at and say, this is a problem because of this.
Yep.
This is still a beautiful story, but this is a problem, and we've grown. And to be able to recognize that you've grown is amazing.
Right. Right. And if that's the sort of a lesson
Yes.
that a person is too young to know,
Sure.
then maybe as a culture we say this book, even, if it was intended for a target audience when it was written,
Yes.
it takes a little bit more cultural wherewithal to really process it.
Yeah.
And maybe, and we're all talking about handing books to children
Right.
versus like what's available at the bookstore.
Yeah, right,
Like,
exactly.
they go to school and you hand them, pass out 20 copies of this, right? That's a different thing.
But I think it's related to in the idea of that Switch now becomes an artificial intelligence is creating art, and it's doing all of it. It's being the writer, it's being the editor. Like in some places, it's being the actor. Like it's doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's a problem?
I don't think that it's doing everything yet, and it could, and maybe the slippery slope
Yeah.
is not a good argument. Like it's
Right.
it's a bit of a logical fallacy. But let's go.
Sure.
Right? Yeah, maybe one day it will do everything, and that's scary, right?
Yeah.
But if it's capable of doing everything like that, you start asking questions about, is it sentient? And that's fun.
It is fun.
And I like
But
that.
common sense tells you eventually it has to be.
Yeah. But right now, in
Right
the present, or at least 5 minutes into the present in which I live.
Right. Yeah. But do you think it's a problem to be able to... I could go onto an AI and type in just simple jargon
Yeah.
and have it generate a whole book.
You could, and it would be shitty. And then a 5-year-old could put the same jargon in and get the same shitty book, but somebody else could put the jargon in, get the shitty book, tell the AI, this are what aren't working, and here's why, try again. It does, and then that person reads the output and again refines their prompts.
Now, do you
There
think
is an
that's-
art
yeah,
to
sure.
that.
Now, that's to me different. Because...
Well, that's what people are doing now.
Right.
The stuff that you see where it's like, an AI did this. It's like, no, a person spent probably 8 hours going back and forth with
an
the AI to get this to happen.
Which is no different than realistically going back and forth with an editor.
Maybe.
It's published.
Yeah. Or maybe it's like, should the caveman slapping ochre on the cave wall be jealous of the tribe next door who invented feather pens and ink? Right? It's like, that's all you got to do is...
Yeah, so you're thinking it's almost a natural progression.
Yeah, if we allow, technology to proceed with, not completely unimpeded, like there's going to be some regulation, but in general, I
it
think
moves faster than we can regulate it.
it really does.
Which is insane because, a lot of stuff...
Especially when the AI starts refining the AI.
Right. That's my favorite part is being like, hey, can you just watch yourself?
Yep.
And not destroy us all?
Dude, I read a sci-fi, I'm doing air quotes that no one can see, sci-fi book probably about 10 years ago about a program that would read your email and consider the recipient and the message you were trying to say and rephrase your email to get the best positive response out of the intended recipient.
So that's literally what Grammarly does.
It does it now. We're living in that age.
Yeah.
Of course, in the book it goes sentient and World War III happens, but...
yeah, I've seen iRobot and Eagle Eye.
For sure. But we literally, we've gone, the distance between sci-fi and reality, I mean, in this example, it's 10 years. It's crazy.
It's almost terrifying. Mm. I'm one of those ones that's just as excited as I am terrified. Because no joke, if we had whatever the equivalent of a warp drive is going to be in our reality, I would 100% do some Star Trek shit. Just to be a person on an exploration vessel, where you're just there and getting to experience that as a private citizen. That sounds amazing.
Would you do a low-level job? Would you be like the exploration vessel bartender or janitor or something like that, or you want to be cutting edge of the science?
I don't think. Well,
you want to be on the away team or no?
I would love to be the away team guy who's like, all right, we need a red shirt.
Yeah.
Just a normal guy to get excited or terrified about stuff.
Beam down the meat shield.
But I think it'd be fun to be the bartender, especially like if we're gonna keep going to the point where we're gonna run into other life and they're gonna be coming onto the ship and stuff like that. Bartender would be the best spot, right? Like getting to talk to everybody and things like that.
I would think so.
Yeah, I don't have I mean, obviously it's a fantasy idea anyways, but I'm still in my head, I'm like, well, I don't have the education in this fake scenario
Right.
to be on the science team. But yeah, being like a Guinan from the next generation.
Yep.
Just running the bar and everybody knows her. It's awesome.
Yep.
I would absolutely, but I would sign up for that. I think genuinely, like, when I think about how terrifying it is, and even like what just happened with the stuff in the ocean, I would have no problem gambling my life on the prospect of that kind of exploration.
Sure.
Like, that just sounds so cool. But I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. I got a feeling, and I don't know if this is where we wanted this conversation to go, but I got a feeling it may never happen. I think there's a distinct possibility that the laws of physics keep us bound to our star system or within the next couple of star systems.
Yeah.
At least within a human lifetime. Robot explorers we're gonna launch robots into the nethers of the universe as long as we can, for sure, no doubt. Yeah. And maybe they'll be sentient robots, but sure. I think the idea of transporting a human body at such speeds that within a lifetime you can explore other stars and civilizations, like, we're gonna have to learn something about physics that changes everything if that's even gonna be possible, you know?
Well, I think there's a piece of sci-fi that we know just from being sci-fi nerds that doesn't exist in the real world either, aside from a warp drive, right. Is the idea of being able to go into some sort of hibernation mode. Because you're talking about, it takes lifetimes to get from places. You have to go into some sort of hibernation mode, or because time is dictated by gravity, in our understanding of that, whatever the artificial life is on a ship would have to have some sort of thing built in that we can't fathom at the moment, where time in the sense, we're getting out in the fucking weeds, but
yeah, I love it.
Time in the sense of how we age would be different on a vessel like a Enterprise.
That's right. Because
it's artificial gravity. You have everything you would need to stay healthy. Like, food is created autonomously. And if you want to go on vacation, it's just done in a holodeck. Like, anything you would need is there. And realistically, aside from like normal low levels of stress, you don't really have like a job or money, or you've grown beyond a lot of these things.
Yeah, post scarcity.
Exactly. Like,
love it.
So I think because of that, I think we would stop thinking of our lives within a 60 to 90 year range, and we would probably lose track of our ages, because without that earthbound gravity that says you're this and this is the wear and tear it's done on your body, you would lose that out in the traveling space.
Yeah, you could say, someone could ask you how old you are. You could say, well, in the time that I've been alive, this number of years have passed for me. This number of years have passed on the planet where I came from.
Right.
This number of years,
which is even just that. Yeah. If there's mingling of species, it's mind blowing. But I think it's one of those things, like, eventually it all just goes away and becomes irrelevant.
Yep.
Or there'll be some new, if there was ever an intergalactic whatever, there would be some new way of measuring it. But I think that it would bum me out to think that it would never happen. I think it'll happen, but we have no idea what it'll look like. It's definitely not going to be in our quote unquote time, whatever that is.
Yep.
But I think it'll just look very different. Even if it's to the point where, like, we start understanding how black holes work, and those are just almost not teleport things, but like are just bridges, which I think is gonna end up being true at some point, which is exciting.
That is fun. Yeah, but then, like, you wonder, like, okay, the math works, but then it is an entirely next step to say, all right, we need to get a vessel containing a squishy human body through that thing.
Right. Yeah, that's
Like,
the
let
difference.
alone getting information back through it.
Yeah.
Like-
Well, that's why when you were saying maybe a sentient AI, in my head it becomes more of, I don't know that AI is going to go sentient in the way that we perceive, so much as we're going to combine our DNA with AI. And it's going to still be human sentience
You don't think, what would
in
be
a
the
biomechanical sort of thing.
what would be the benefit of the biomechanics, do you think?
Like what you just said,
What?
being able to pass through based off what we know. Imagine if we had enough science, our understanding of our science of like a black hole for whatever reason, and we were like, all right, you're not gonna, as a meat bag, like Bender would say, you're not gonna be able to pass through this. But if you were a mixture of like a biomechanic thing that was, I don't know, 50-50, 70-30, whatever.
Terminator rules.
Terminator rules.
Yeah.
Then you can pass through this. Or at least you can compute whatever factors and algorithms are going at a speed of how fast they're changing to be able to counteract whatever you're dealing with. Because now you're talking about quantum computing.
Yeah.
And having that built into the human brain. Because the human brain is not going to quantum compute. But now if it starts getting augmented, you're going to be able to figure those things out and be able to process them. It's kind of like how the Flash moves.
Yeah.
He moves so fast that everything is so slow around him.
Yeah.
And he thinks that much faster as his body moves as well. And so it's a whole big process, not just, oh, he moves fast. No, he's thinking that fast. Also, he's still reacting to everything at a much higher speed.
Yep.
And with if you have a built-in quantum computer matched with the human brain.
What, I guess, where I'm going is, what's in this scenario the point of the human brain? Like,
oh, I guess just
like,
that's the last piece of holding on to humanity.
That's exactly where I was going to go with that.
Right. Yeah, that's true. At that point,
and we will, if this ever like even approaches reality, I think people will cling viciously to their last shred of humanity.
Yeah.
But I think if we're really thinking about like, we got, for example, we got to get through that black hole, man.
Right.
I think the first thing that AI is going to do is be like, well, we don't need this. Shed the brain.
Right.
Don't need this.
There goes the brain, the heart, lungs. Don't need any of these.
Why do I shit once a day? And if I don't, I feel terrible. Don't need that.
Yeah. I like that idea actually, just because we always presume the AI is going to become sentient and kill us. But I like the idea of it not doing that until the point where it realizes we've definitely meshed in a beautiful way. And then one day the AI is like, why?
Yep.
Why do I need all these squishy parts?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you this, but really, Andy Halder, I'm talking to you directly. That's why I don't believe that guy right now who's talking about we got alien bodies and I'll tell you in a closed room. Like, he's like, oh, I'll do the government hearings, and then when you ask me where the bodies are, I'll be like, I'll tell you in private, and he fucking hasn't. The reason I don't believe him is because, let's say the reason I don't trust him, not that I don't believe him.
Sure.
The reason I am slow to trust this gentleman is that why on earth, if you've solved the problems of interstellar travel and miracles of science, are you putting a squishy alien body in a tin can and flying it around in the air? You don't need to do that. Like, are you telling me there's something that alien can do that they couldn't engineer something to do better?
Well, but that begs the argument of the same reason we use pilots in war.
Yeah, and how far off of our planet have we gotten?
Fair enough, but there's still...
And we're doing everything we can to not use pilots in war.
Yeah, we're definitely closer to just... Drone strikes are definitely more of a thing. It's really just that we're talking about quantum computing. The human brain still works faster than you can program a computer. For now, we're literally one good week from that not being true.
Yeah,
yeah, it's insane to think about. But I don't know. Originally I tied the AI to creating art, and is the art devalued because it's quote unquote artificially created?
Right.
And realistically, no. Depending on how you want to define art,
Right.
I guess.
Yeah,
but,
like I guess like you can absolutely look at, let's say, an oil painting
yeah,
and a really well rendered like 3D computer generated piece that somebody did by hand, right?
Sure.
Those are two vastly different mediums.
absolutely.
The one who did the one almost certainly couldn't do the other because you
Right,
got to spend
probably
forever
vice versa,
training on
yeah.
them. And you can talk from both sides probably pretty validly about the benefits of each, right? But do we say that one is art and one's not? I think that's going to be the step too far. And so I think where I come down right now is, as long as you're having a realistic conversation about what people are doing and accomplishing with these new tools.
Yeah.
I see this AI shit as a tool right now, an extremely powerful
That's
one.
actually an important distinction, because the soul of art isn't changing. The tools we're using are changing. And that's a big distinction.
I buy that statement. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I like it. Well, we solved that.
Good. But let's take it one step further. Even now, what do you think about the idea then of something like Bruce Willis just licensed his image to be used for future projects?
Yeah.
When he's gone, which will still generate revenue, which is I haven't figured out how I feel about this idea yet, because to me, people complain about comic book movies because they saturate the market.
Yeah.
They're still making amazing movies outside of comic book movies.
Yeah.
They're harder to find.
They are.
And you have to pay attention. You have to look for them.
Mm-hmm.
But those kind of movies were never in the forefront anyways.
Yeah.
So when I hear old men complain about it, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're still going to make your money?
Yeah.
And I've always found indie films because I love indie films.
Yeah.
And
probably by volume, there are way more indie films now than there ever were.
I agree with that too, and it's so viable to do.
Just nobody spoon feeds them to you.
Exactly, but to me, they never were spoon fed to you in the first place.
Yeah,
you're
that's
just
true.
mad that what you make isn't popular, and that ebbs and flows. Like eventually, those will be over, and then it'll be something else for a while, and then they'll come back, like whatever. But it's the same idea then. If you can just license an image of an actor, why would you ever hire new actors? Or why would you ever need new actors? Eventually you'd hit a point where, well, we'll just have Bruce Willis star and everything. Mm-hmm. We control what he looks like. We control what he says. We control how he does everything. Like, now I don't even need a director. I just need a dickhead to program what I want this image to say. Mm-hmm. Do you think that now we're getting into a little more murky water?
That's a little murky. With the Bruce Willis thing specifically, a part of me wants to say that if both parties enter the contract in good faith and understand what they're getting into, then nobody should tell them that they can't. However,
it's like
you can't take that argument. What's the Latin? I'm going to say Latin on your podcast, Tim. Ad absurdum.
Ooh,
yeah,
feels
like
good.
to a nonsensical end.
I think my IQ
right?
just went up.
Yeah. So if we take that argument, right, like both parties, good faith, they know what they're getting into.
Sure.
That should be fine, right?
In theory, yeah.
But if you take that ad absurdum to insanity, then you would say, okay, well then that means two people can enter an agreement by which one is the other's slave.
Right.
But no, you fucking can't.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying that because the law says you can't. I'm saying, no, you fucking can't do that.
Yeah.
Because somebody's going to get fucked.
Right. That's
right.
Well, now you've created a moral conundrum.
Yeah.
As opposed to a legal one.
So I wonder, does Dan Walsh feel the same way about Bruce Willis? Like, is somebody going to get fucked there? Is that inevitable? It's murky.
It is murky. Like, it doesn't bother me when I watch whatever new Terminator film and they digitally put Arnold Schwarzenegger's face on an old Terminator. That doesn't bother me. Mm-hmm. One day, Arnold Schwarzenegger's going to be gone, and they're still going to do that. But to me, that's an homage to somebody that meant so much to this thing. Mm-hmm. It's like if they kept making diehards and they recast, they'd have to recast the main character.
Yeah.
But like there was an homage of Bruce Willis somewhere in it.
Yeah.
That wouldn't bother me. If they just kept using Bruce Willis and made diehards for the rest of our lives. Mm-hmm.
Right. Die Hard 6 starring Bruce Willis. He's Ghost.
Exactly. Like now it gets a little weird. Like even when if you watch Rogue One, You can see Grand Moff Tarkin, and you can see Princess Leia, and they are just digital de-aged images.
Mm-hmm.
Something like Grand Moff Tarkin, but it's Peter Cushing's gonna Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
But it's jarring.
Yeah.
And it's odd, and I think that even in The Mandalorian, when they had Luke Skywalker come in, hashtag spoilers, and I don't know why you would. I love Mark Hamill. He is an absolute treasure of a man. But I don't know why you wouldn't recast that, because we know who the character is. It doesn't matter what they look like. We know that character is the zeitgeist, not Mark Hamill. I love Mark Hamill to death. Luke Skywalker is the zeitgeist, not Mark Hamill.
Now, you talk about it being jarring, though, right? It being taken out of the suspension of disbelief.
Sure.
That's a whole lot of what goes into making good media, I think, is can you get your audience to invest for the duration, right? And not be taken out and remember that they're watching a movie.
Yeah.
So I do wonder, like in that Mandalorian scene, again, spoilers, would it have been equally as jarring if we saw the green lightsabers and the fighting style and who knows, maybe even like a little bit of the theme in the background music, and then he takes off his mask and it's some dude, like, and you're like, who's that? Oh, it's Luke Skywalker. It's a different. Am I pulled out of the movie in a similar way there too?
I suppose.
I don't know. Maybe I am.
Realistically, probably.
Yeah.
It's one of those 50. It's close enough to a 50-50 thing, where you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
So those of us that complain
or you can't
about
ever make me happy.
Yeah, the CGI is bad, or they recast it. But I think there's still a way to do it. If you take Sebastian Stan, right now looks just like a young Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, that's Bucky, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you would have done that with those tells, like, Luke Skywalker has a distinctive hand. He has a distinctive lightsaber.
Yep.
He has a distinctive fighting style and stance like that. Because of the younger... Like, I love old Luke. That doesn't bother me at all. But if you're going to have a younger version... Like, this... I first noticed this stuff in X-Men, where they de-aged Patrick Stewart and what's Magneto's name? I forget. Sir Ian
Gandalf.
McKellen. Gandalf. Sir Ian McKellen. And I'm almost wondering if it bothers me. Like, was that fine? It was only for a scene. They've done it with Samuel L. Jackson a bunch with Nick Fury. Like, if I'm gonna say it's okay for a scene, is it okay for a movie? Then it's okay for forever. Would I go back and want to recast Samuel L. Jackson as just a 20-year younger person and bring in a whole new actor? Would that fudge it up?
I don't know.
Maybe.
I'll tell you when it worked. Men in Black. Josh Brolin playing Tommy Lee Jones's character as a younger version.
Right.
Gold.
See, like that, like, it's almost like you're getting to really flex more acting chops because here's already an already established thing, and you just have to plug into that.
Yeah.
To me, I would presume it's similar to, like, instead of trying to just sing, it's trying to harmonize. And harmonizing is easy. You're just bending your voice up to match a pitch. Easier. And I feel like that's what acting, if you're just copying something that's already existing. Like, they wouldn't hire Tommy Lee Jones probably because he's like, absolutely not. But maybe they did approach him and they're like, we're just going to de-age you and do all this stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
I'm glad they did it that way. Although I wonder if I'd feel the same way if, like, the first Men in Black had been in 1983 and it had been a young Tommy Lee Jones.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
I might be like, jarred out of the movie. I don't know.
Now, this also begs the next question. If what I'm talking about was the practice already, as far as, all right, we have this younger actor, he's Samuel L. Jackson 20 years ago, and this other one is 40 years ago, and this is, if that was already the practice of doing that, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
No, you're right. We'd be used to it.
We were so used to it.
We get used to everything.
We do, and that's
such animals.
It's so funny to me how much we complain.
Yeah.
And I love to complain and argue about stuff.
Yeah.
But realistically, if they did it for 3 years, we would forget that it was ever any different.
It's true.
Because it doesn't matter, really.
No.
And I'm all for more people getting work.
Yeah.
But it also has to be, like, going back to what you were saying about writing. It has to be done well.
Yep.
Like, there's tons of actors. And some of them are good and some of them are less good. I'm inclined to think that if you're an actor, like, genuinely a part of the Actors Guild and have paid your dues and taken your time, you know what you're doing. But it's the director's job to get that out of you. It's the writer's job to have a compelling story to tell.
Yep.
Like, it's symbiotic. It all has to work together to get the best performance out of everything. It's like where you can watch a movie and be like, oh, Tobey Maguire sucked in this, but he was incredible in this. Well, who was he working with? Who's he working off of? Who wrote what he's saying?
Yep.
Like, and who's directing it and stuff? How's it shot?
Yeah. And what was his passion level about the project?
Yeah. So when you hear stuff like that, it's easy to kind of get behind. To me, it's easy to get behind the strike, the writer and the actor strike particularly, because I think it's easy to look at the actor strike and be like, these overpaid assholes. But then it's like, well, that's not what it's about. Like 90% of people that are in the Actors Guild make under 26 grand a year, because it's not just these huge movie stars.
Yep.
If you're looking at a population and you take Hollywood actors as a population, the 1% is who you're talking about, not the other 99 that are struggling trying to do anything.
Yeah.
So, and I think it hurts the industry at whole to hold off on this money, knowing that the people in charge are still getting these bonus checks and this ridiculous extra money and stuff off of their hard work. And then people like us suffer because we live our lives by the TV, and now we don't get to enjoy our stuff.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to me.
Yeah. Give me my toys.
Yeah, I love my toys. And I don't think anything annoys me more than to be like, oh, we just lost a year because they didn't want to pay these guys an extra 10%.
Yeah, right?
Like, really? Especially coming off of COVID where we just lost 2 years.
Yep.
And everything was shut down. Like, what are you doing? It's crazy to see the battle of, like, who thinks they're in control. And who's going to give in sooner. Like, you don't have anything without writers and actors. And you don't have anything without studios at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
But, I mean, look what happened with music.
That's really true, yeah.
We're not far off from being able to create your own content. And I've seen a lot of, like, not even independent stuff, but I mean, like, low budget, like, student film type stuff. That looks pretty good.
Yeah.
So, we're getting closer and closer. Like, when I think about, like, the 50s, the 30s, back in the old days, when you signed a contract to a studio, where it was like, all right, you're signing with Paramount or whatever to make 6 pictures. You don't know what they are, what they're going to be, but you're the star now. And you can just get cookie cutter movie after whatever.
Yep.
Whereas now you get to sign on to projects that you care about, that you're interested in. You rarely, like, movie deals still exist, I'm sure, but I feel like it's such a rarity. Especially in a bigger actor's life, obviously.
I would think so.
Like,
I don't know for sure.
But... Yeah, I don't know either, but it was definitely the practice at one point, and now it's like it's absurd to think about. Like, and what's that going to look like in 20 years for what we're talking about now, right?
Right.
I don't know. That's a lot to think about.
Yep. Glad it's not my job.
Yeah, I'm glad it. Yeah, I'll stay in my little classroom talking to the 11 and 12-year-olds.
Yep.
And tell them why they're wrong about everything they like.
Yep. And I'll read bad takes on the internet and be like, I should respond to that. But I won't.
but I won't.
Yep.
Oh, man. I do want to talk about comic books. Because you're still pretty new to reading comics.
I don't know that I would say new, but it's at such a low level, like it's so infrequent, you know?
Well, I have bad news for you. You particularly. Because I went and watched some of the Watchmen motion comic. Yeah. Because I remember you said you watched that. Yeah. You never read it.
Yeah.
And I presumed it was word for word.
It seemed like it.
It wasn't.
Oh, no?
I watched episode 1 and 4. Because episode 4 or issue 4 is my favorite. And I was like, if anything needs to be precise, exactly as it was written from Alan Moore, it's episode 4. and it wasn't at all. And I was like, oh no, like you're not, because the movie doesn't nail it like that either. Also, I noticed, I watched it on HBO not that long ago. If you haven't seen the director's cut of Watchmen,
I don't think I have.
whatever the regular version is, fucking sucks.
Okay.
It's missing so much.
Yeah.
I didn't know that because I never saw it.
Oh wait, does the director's cut has the kid story, the Black Sail? Is that what it is?
No, there's an ultimate cut that has that.
Okay.
But no, I think as a movie you don't need that. I think it's probably pulls too much. In the comic book, it's awesome.
Sure.
Because you can see that he's reading that comic and
Yeah,
it's panel for panel. But it's Tales of the Black Freighter.
Oh, right.
Is the thing. But no, there's a bunch of scenes that are just pulled out of the theatrical version.
Oh.
That are, to me, critical. But again, all I ever saw was the director's cut. And I'm usually a sucker for that anyways. Like, I want to know what the director was trying to tell you. This goes back to what we were just talking about with, like, interference of story.
Yep.
A big one of those is studio interference.
Yeah.
And I only really feel that with Warner Brothers and DC films. Even before, like, the internet, I was paying attention and was, like, privy to that, where the interference happens. I've always felt like Warner Brothers, because DC makes comic books. Marvel makes comic books. Marvel's owned by Disney, but they put a comic book nerd, Kevin Feige, in charge, in the overall charge. They bring in different directors, they bring in different writers, but the guy keeping it cohesive as one big thing is a comic book nerd.
Okay.
As opposed to DC license partnership has been with Warner Brothers for forever, since the 70s.
Oh.
So they've always had exclusive access to all DC films because all the characters are licensed right to Warner Brothers.
All right.
And they've always, I feel like, have interfered, especially if you watch a movie like the first Suicide Squad film. Makes no sense, and there's like literally, have you watched it? There's scenes missing, and like you're jumping scenes, and it's not even cohesive.
Yep.
Not even as a story, as a shot film with particular shots in order are missing.
Ugh.
And they don't tell you what's happening, and then they just presented it.
Huh.
And it's absurd.
And the missing scenes exist and were axed.
Yeah. It's the same thing, like Jared Leto came out even after that first one, and was like, because they had upwards of 20 to 30 minutes of Joker scenes that they filmed, and there's only 3 minutes in the film.
Yeah.
Because he was like, I don't know what that was. Even if you look at the Justice League film, it came out and people didn't like it, and then they released the Snyder Cut, which was a 4-hour recut, and people are like, this is a whole new movie.
Oh, okay.
Like, this is actually really good. I haven't sat down and watched it yet. I like Zack Snyder in general, so I probably would enjoy it.
All right.
But it's crazy to think about that, because to me that's the same thing we were just talking about, of taking somebody's art and kind of, cutting it away and chopping it down and then trying to present it as something that still matters.
Sure.
So I guess realistically, we've already been living with it. Any studio that's released a film
has
but final say.
There is a difference though when like you don't give the audience a chance to interact with it versus when you do and then take it away, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure it happens at Marvel also. It's just not like, it doesn't feel.
They don't do it to the level that it feels like a hack job.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about, because DC has amazing characters and amazing stories. And that was my original point, is that if you've only watched the motion comic, I need you to actually read Watchmen.
Well, I would actually, because I power read through a really dense novel that I just finished the other day, and there sits the next entry in the series, and I'm just exhausted. And it's so dense. And
you should take a break then, because there's a couple of comics that I would really like you to read.
So, breath of fresh air. Yeah.
I just rewatched V for Vendetta, and it's such a bad movie. I love it so much. The
bad movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
But the book is incredible.
Yeah?
Yeah, and it's very, very different. And I have that also that I think you should read. All right. Also, the new Shirtless Bear Fighter came out.
Okay, that's at the top then.
I think the last one was like 8 issues, but it's finally in a trade.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so which is a trade is a graphic novel.
What about the new season of Saga? Is that in a collection yet?
That's funny. So at the comic book shop I go to Graham Crackers in DeKalb, and I love those guys. They're like genuinely like my friends, and I like them a lot. But I refer to graphic novels as seasons and individual issues of comics as episodes.
Yeah.
So the new season of Saga is out. In fact, actually, almost 10 is the last graphic novel.
Okay.
And 11's probably just about due out because 10 came out a while ago. So yeah, there's probably a couple things to read there.
Excellent.
I would highly recommend Paper Girls also.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think you'd mentioned that once or twice. That seems really interesting. 5 or 6
volumes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's what I need because there are times when I can just consume novels back to back to back.
Yeah. Now, when you say novels too, like these are like, how big is that? 600, 800?
That's 1,000.
That's 1,000 pages.
Yeah, and that's 10 book series.
And what number is that? The
4.
4? Oh man, yeah. I don't know how you keep it all in your brain. Like, because you and Mike are insane about Lord of the Rings. Is it just because you've read it so much? Or are you retaining, like, one of the reasons I don't like reading that is because I don't retain a lot of information. I have to reread, and I'll pull little points here and there, and the more I reread, I can get a couple more points.
Yeah, no, there are definitely points on reread that you pick up, for sure.
So you do reread things over and
I do
over
sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like... shoot, what was I going to say? That's every now and again, even after a single read, sometimes it's not a matter of like, at least in my brain, I might not be able to call it up at any time.
Yeah.
But if you give me this one little bing and we're talking about this, and then bing, that lights up another little neuron, and I'm like, oh, remember this? Oh, and remember this? Oh my gosh, let me tell you this entire fucking story, because it's in there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what happened with Game of Thrones originally, because I was late to the party by a few seasons. And I kept having you tell me about the books. And I was like, sounds amazing. And then you and I sat and watched the first season, which I ended up doing like 3 different times.
Nice.
I want to rewatch it again because I want to watch the new show also. But I just want to burn through the original just because.
Sure.
It just feels good. I'm always still hoping to one day meet a nice girl that I can watch TV shows with.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah, they don't like TV.
Well, the ones that do.
Women, right?
Am I right? The ones that do probably aren't.
Yep, women be like this, and men, they be like that.
Yeah, sometimes they do be that way. Yeah. Well, maybe that's a good place to stop. The fact that we'll never have girlfriends.
Oh, you're going to let me stop on sarcastic sexism?
Well, I want people to really get a good grasp of who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
When people think Dan Walsh, they don't think Dan falls down.
I'm a moderately well-spoken, pseudo-intellectual piece of shit. It's been really nice sitting down with you.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Love you, brother.
Love you too.